Welcome to The Fourth Bottom Line, the podcast where we meet people from business, charities and politics who are a force for good. In each episode, I talk to my guests about their inner side and how their internal changes have led to their outer success stories. We talk about the failures, spirituality and sometimes the painful experiences that have made them the unique individuals they are today. The main aim being for us to learn from and be inspired by them for our own lives. So, if you desire change in yourself and the world around you, do keep listening. And please remember to hit subscribe on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss an episode. Hello, my name is Paul Hargreaves. I'm the founder and Chief Empowerment Officer of Cotswold Fair and Flourish, two businesses that put people and planet before profit. In 2015, we became one of the first B Corps in the UK, and I've written two books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. I'm passionate about changing the world for better and realised many years ago that to do this, we must also change ourselves. The outer impact of people, planet and profit has to be mirrored by an inner change, and that's what I call my fourth bottom line.
Younger generation leaders are starting to come through and want more. I think everybody's now expecting more from the company that they work in. Whereas before, for my parents, it was like, I need a paycheck. I need to fund my life through a very tricky economic, and you sort of conformed. And now you're coming into this going, I sort of want a bit more from my job. I want to have fun. I want to be rewarded. I want the flexibility that I need. Sure, that was added to by COVID, but it's like, I think we're all demanding more, and the best organisations want the best people. And they're the ones who are demanding more from their employers. And I think the ones who are adapting and changing are the ones that have got the best talent. And that's ultimately the way to being a more successful business.
My guest today is Will Howard. Will is the UK Managing Director and Chief Commercial Officer at Grow Up Farms, an award-winning, purpose-led vertical farming business committed to transforming how food is grown and enjoyed in the UK. With a career rooted in building mission-driven brands, including Ella's Kitchen and Innocent, Will is passionate about the role business can play in shaping a better food system, one that delivers for consumers, customers, and the planet. Will is also a certified mental health first aider and a committed advocate for well-being in the workplace. He believes that organisations grounded in clear values and authentic purpose are better equipped to make decisions that create long-term, sustainable value. At the heart of everything Will does is family, and he balances his purposeful work with being present at home, DJing, and is still learning to walk on his hands at the age of 47. Will, welcome to The Fourth Bottom Line. We'll start off with the walking on your hands bit. This is an interesting one. How long have you been trying to do that?
For 7 years, I think. I think part of my always wanting to challenge myself is I started CrossFit because it was impossibly hard and I couldn't quite do it all. And one of the things you get to learn to do is handstands. And the next step on from that would be walking handstands. So I'm mostly falling over. And at 6'4", I can't say that I'm brilliant at it, but it's definitely worth giving it a go. And I can move 3 or 4 steps on my hands. So I am learning how to walk on my hands.
Progress.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think if I did it in my house, my feet would hit the beams because we live in an old cottage. So that's my excuse for not trying. Right. So I usually start by asking people about their childhood, where you grew up, what your mum and dad were doing and the kind of values that were instilled in you as a child. Talk to me a bit about that.
I grew up in North London, really family-centred home. Mum was a PA for a financial firm. Dad was in The Print, I think it used to be called. He was a typographic designer. And I think I spent most of my childhood growing up in a house that was being renovated. Dad was always trying to make the house better or even livable in. And I think when I moved out, they finished. But Mum and Dad taught me a lot about working hard, being committed, being kind, and many other stories throughout that journey. But I think Dad was in print when computers really started to hit off and got made redundant. So that life changed and ebbed and flowed significantly during that time.
Happy times?
I think mostly really happy, younger years really happy. And then 11th, secondary school, definitely a turn for the worst. Was not my favourite time of my life.
What went wrong there then?
If you asked my mum, she would say, you fell in with the wrong group of people.
Actually, someone did tell me you were a bit of a tearaway when you were younger. So, what I mean, obviously the police aren't listening. What were you doing?
I was just, I probably didn't have the right focus in life. Like I loved mountain biking and I'd be always out on my bike. But when it was dark and you used to hang out with your friends, invariably you'd get up to the wrong things. We were bored and curious and probably a bit confident or cocky. I think this was at the time that my dad started to work nights as well. So he was less around and Mum was always like, that was when it happened. And I think, to be honest, I think I was a right pain in the arse for my parents from that time. I went from being nice, young, to being really annoying and always getting in trouble.
That's most teenagers though, isn't it, to some degree?
Yeah. I sort of worry about it for my eldest. I think she's incredibly bright and she's at that age where I notice something change in me. And I think my parents my sister and I went to a different school. And Mum said, if you went to the same school as your sister, you'd probably be in a lot more trouble. And they put me into a school which I really didn't enjoy. It was like a boys' school. I wanted to play football. They made you play rugby. And all of these things just compounded the dissatisfaction I had in life at that time.
So your sister was in an all-girls school and you were in an all-boys?
She was in a mixed comp, but I had to go to a boys' school to keep me on the straight and narrow.
That's how I went to an all-boys school. I think I was less on the straight and narrow than if I hadn't been. But I mean, the other thing that did for me, I'd be interested to ask you too, is it took me a long time to learn to relate to the opposite sex in a positive way, being in an all-boys school.
Yeah.
I think, my kids all went to comprehensive, and they're much better at being friends with the opposite sex than I ever was. Yeah. Well, what about you?
Entirely true. I can't remember when I had my first girlfriend, but it was much later than a lot of my other friends. Yeah. I mean, it was never helped by our headmaster at the boys' school, because there was the girls' school further down the hill, called it the whorehouse on the hill, and completely put the two as separate ways of life. And it definitely made it harder to relate. Like today, loads of my friends are women, but it took a long time. There's an adjustment period, and I know it's really common for a lot of people.
They're all grown up now, but not great. And you ended up in hospitality, I think. I don't know what the journey is from school. Talk to me about sixth form onwards. If you went, I don't know if you did.
There was a unique moment that happened in my life, and I think it was I ended up in a fight in the 5th year at school. I punched somebody once, and something else happened with a few other people, and I ended up in court.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I ended up getting ABH in a fray. And going into court at that point. This was at the end of my tearaway years, but I genuinely, to this day, and I was acquitted, by the way, we can come on to that, didn't do anything wrong. Self-defense, one punch, done.
I believe you.
You can, thanks. Yeah. But what happened is my school, if you're in court, there's no way we're having you into the sixth form. And I was like, oh.
I thought you were innocent until proven guilty, aren't you?
Do you know what? It was the luckiest moment in my life to that point, because actually I hated that school. There's nothing I wanted. I didn't want to wear a suit and go into sixth form and pretend to be someone that I wasn't and keep playing rugby and push to do cross country. It's not who I wanted to be or what. Yeah. So I got to go to Oaklands College in Borehamwood. So that was my sixth form college, where I did an advanced GMVQ in business and finance. And that was when I started to be like, oh, you can still be okay, you can learn, but maybe you don't have to do it in the same fashion as this previous school wanted me to do it.
So what course did you do there, sorry?
An advanced GMVQ in business and finance.
Okay.
And my attendance was poor. Let's continue the theme. But I think I was the only one in my 2-year course to pass every exam with merits and distinctions.
Okay.
And I started to think, okay, that wasn't that hard. But I think it's the first moment when I realised that you can be successful. You don't have to do it the way that everyone thinks you should.
Well, isn't that the big problem with education, is that there's a certain approved route that most people are meant to go on, and actually that's probably the right route for 10% of the people. For the other 90%, it's just not suitable.
Yeah, it should be an environment where you thrive and you feel safe and feel comfortable trying new things. But I think often you're confined to a particular way of doing things that doesn't allow you to flourish.
No, that's the word. Yes, you're spot on. I'd love to change that. I don't know whether we will, but maybe AI will help that change, because a lot of education will be completely redundant. So I'm hoping as time goes on, people will be taught at school how to communicate, about relationships, and all the stuff that robots can't do. But
completely. And I think cost as well will bring a change, because not everybody can afford to go through, life in the way through university. And I think more and more people will learn to do things on the job. There'll be a variety of different ways, and I think AI will be one. But
so after college, where did you go there?
I had no idea what I wanted to do, absolutely none. And a friend of mine who was at the Oaklands College said, I'm going to Cassio College in Watford to look at a hotel catering and institutional management course. And I was like, sounds great. I went with him and I enrolled. And that was it.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a 3-year BA honours, and I ended up with a 2-year HND for something we'll come on to next.
Which is?
For your in between the first and the second year, you could go and work in any hotel in the UK.
Yes.
And somebody I was going out with at the time was like, no, that's not the rules. You can go and work anywhere in the world. So I went off and worked in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard.
Isn't Martha's, that's where the presidents have a holiday place, isn't it?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there's many big houses, but I had the best time of my life out there. And
working in a catering environment.
Yeah, I was working in a Michelin star or Michelin star equivalent restaurant, same owners as Nobu, very lucky. And everyone, I thrived. I loved it. I was a cocktail barman. I was a waiter. I'd do triple shifts. We'd earn so much money. And because I wasn't actually 21, I couldn't really spend it because they were very harsh on letting you go to the bars. So that was it. And I came back and did the second year. And rather than continue into the third year, I went back to America again and did another 10, 11 months on my own in the same restaurants and bars.
Because they say, a lot of people who are in hospitality have said to me that they ended up in it because they didn't know what to do. So a lot of chefs, I employ quite a lot of chefs. A lot of them, it wasn't their plan. They just ended up, okay, it's working. Was that true for you then, or?
I think so. I mean, I was studying the course. The course at the college was actually it was half textbook and half doing. And I found I really liked the doing. So going into a class and baking a loaf of bread or learning how to do it. And actually, I think there's a continuation of that when you go into a kitchen and then you can start over here with some mise en place or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're doing the next thing along. And I think you quite quickly can get quite far in. And actually, it's quite an enjoyable career because you're with a group, a team. It's a lot of fun. Tiring, for sure. Very long hours, but I think it's easy to fall into and stay in love with it.
Yeah. So you didn't, because you're not doing that now. How did you break out of hospitality?
I think I came back from America and was like, what am I doing with my life? I also needed a car. And there was an open day for Rothmans International. It's not on my CV or my LinkedIn profile, and I don't know why I'm embarrassed about it, but I don't like it. But they gave me 18 months of classic FMCG training,
right,
and a car.
For selling cigarettes, was this?
Selling cigarettes,
right,
around. So the idea was you'd have to go into, my territory was northwest London. It was like Harlesden, Neasden. It was a pretty rough area at the time. And you'd have to go in and try and convince a retailer or an independent off license to buy a packet of Rothmans lights 24s. Like it was ultimate training ground to go on and do what I did. And it was a soulless job, always on your own. But sometimes you could get some results. But after 18 months of getting a car and actually learning a lot about myself, like my boss at the time, was interesting. He came and checked my car out, because your car had to be to a certain standard of cleanliness, because it was very important. And he sat in my car and he said, "I've bought you a paintbrush." And I was like, "What for?" And he was like, "To clean the dust from the air vents." And I was like, "What? The car's like spotless." But that was the rigor that they wanted to make sure that you represented the brand of the business to the nth degree. And whether you walked up the car with clean shoes on to go into your first call of the day, or your car was spotless.
It's a bit ironic when they're selling stuff that's killing people, though, isn't it?
Completely. Like walking into my first meeting with the training director and leaving with 200 Marlboro lights, or and you're like, it's just wrong.
I was going to say,
or is it?
I know. A friend of mine actually has had a similar career path. Also ended up at Red Bull. How did you feel? Because as more people were smoking in those days than now. But how did you feel when you were out selling these things?
I mean, at the time I smoked.
Right.
So it's actually quite cool to be having a boot full of Zippo lighters that you could give away if the retailer did what, gave you the listings and the facing.
Yeah.
So, but how did I feel? I didn't feel anything. I think that's it. It was a functional job.
Yes.
You did it, you finished it, you got it done as quickly and as efficiently as you could.
Which is true for many jobs, isn't it? People only really look forward to finishing.
Yeah, and that's not a great place to be if you really want to get on and do things, because you just want it over and done with so you can go and do the other more fun things. And that's not the best way to prepare and get up on a Monday morning. You're probably not doing your best work when you're out and about. And that can become quite lonely.
So at that point in your life, if looking back now, if you were to give some advice to yourself, what would you be saying?
I think advice about that particular first career move, or just advice as my journey and my working career?
Yeah, if you could, give yourself advice for the future. From that point onwards,
There was a moment in my next job where I always used to say, I'm going to be general manager by the time I'm like 35. And everyone was like, really? And the advice I would have given is the same then as it was in my first job, which is you can 100% do it. If you believe in yourself, don't self-sabotage, you'll get there. And I wish I'd have had that advice and believed in it, because it probably took me a bit longer because I did self-sabotage.
So I'm interested to know how you transitioned from that job, which was fairly purposeless, into you are now a very purposeful person leading purposeful organisations. Talk to me about that journey. When did you first realise, I guess, that, it says it in the intro, that business can be a transformational agent for society? Talk to me about how you got there, when it happened.
You have to jump forward. So after Rothmans, I went to L'Oreal, didn't quite fit. Went to PepsiCo, did really, really well, don't get me wrong. PepsiCo didn't quite fit.
Didn't quite fit for what reasons, do you think?
I always joke about it, like my smart casual wasn't the same as their smart casual, and I didn't feel that I was my true self. Okay. And it was how I showed up. It's not that I didn't want to be great and try my hardest. It just, I didn't feel like I was able to be my true self. And I think it took my now wife, when we were working at PepsiCo, she said, you just need to get a better job. But not better for financially, like a different one that fits you. Yes. And so to answer your question, that transformational moment when I joined Red Bull, and I'm not saying they're the greatest, agents of change for the world, but they're a business that actually stood for something and really wanted people to be their true selves. And if you talk about an energetic culture that can do whatever they set their minds on, that's the first experience I had of it.
I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm hoping the world has changed a bit, but back in the day, people really didn't want people to be their true selves at work. They wanted people to come in, be a machine for 8 hours, and then go home and then turn into the real person again. I mean, have things changed, first of all? Would you say that there are more organisations now where people are encouraged to be their true selves? Or is it still a minority?
I can only base it on my experience, but in all companies I've worked at post Red Bull, yes, you're encouraged to be yourself.
But you've chosen to go to the companies where you can do that. What do you think? I mean, you run across people in other businesses, suppliers, customers, etc. Do you think that is more the case now than it used to be?
To varying degrees, for sure. I think there's some unlucky people who get to work in some companies that do okay. And there's a lucky few of us who get to work in really great companies that really want people to be themselves, and the benefits are just visible to all, whether that's financial results, the health and well-being of the organisation.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, I obviously agree with you that those companies will do better. So why don't all companies go down this route? Why is it only still a few?
I think it would be down to a variety of reasons, like leadership, number one, not seeing the value. I think a lot of younger generation leaders are starting to come through and want more. I think everybody's now expecting more from the company that they work in. Whereas before, for my parents, it was like, I need a paycheck.
Yeah.
I need to fund my life through a very tricky economic, and you sort of conformed. And now you're coming into this going, I sort of want a bit more from my job. I want to have fun. I want to be rewarded. I want the flexibility that I need. Sure, that was added to by COVID, but it's like, I think we're all demanding more, and the best organisations want the best people, and they're the ones who are demanding more from their employers. And I think the ones who are adapting and changing are the ones that have got the best talent, and that's ultimately the way to being a more successful business.
So now you're obviously in a position where you can largely influence that culture. Talk to us about, hopefully there's some people listening who are in the same position. How are you creating that great place to work at Grow Up Farms and previously at Ella's?
I mean, I think you said it in the intro. Having a true purpose for the business is really important, like why. And then following that on with the values that the business operates within or by. And we at Grow Up, we redefined our purpose because it didn't quite match what we were trying to achieve.
Okay.
So the first purpose we had was better food for all. Sounds brilliant. Very well-meaning, but not everyone can afford a bag of salad. Is it really for all? And are we doing anything about the for all? So not. And it didn't represent who we were and where we got about 30 people together, and we changed the purpose over a long period of time. It took to actually get this written down, but it's like we're growing for a better future. And suddenly the whole team aligned to our purpose, which was missing in the first bit.
And what kind of things do you do to help the team align to that purpose? Because a lot of corporate businesses have a purpose. Might be a clever turn of phrase, which that is actually. But you walk in there and it's pretty clear everyone's not aligned. So how do you get people kind of aligned behind that purpose?
I think it's consistency, making sure it's communicated well to start with, making sure it's true and that it's delivered on. I mean, if you think back to Ella's, you knew that there was a clear purpose in that business. The minute you walked through the door, you could feel it in the culture. For us at Grow Up, again, we're on the early stages of people buy into our purpose. It's why they come to work. And we just need to keep talking about it. The values that sort of align behind that purpose are so important, and that how we share decisions through those values, how we discuss people's performance across those 4 values, how we try and live those values every day. And I think it all links back together.
So one thing I did want to talk to you about, because both people I talked to about you as part of my prep for this, my spying, both described you as being very honest and kind and caring, but also ambitious. Mm-hmm. Now, that's an interesting balance, isn't it? Because a lot of, I've met some very ambitious people, and then quite a lot of them aren't very kind. So how do you balance that? Because I think it's an important question. I think it's important to create that entrepreneurial culture without losing the compassion and kindness. And I think we've been through various ebbs and flows. People love working for us. They don't often leave. We do the Sunday Times best places to work and, get some great scores. But sometimes you can create a culture that people so much are almost too comfortable that you lose the kind of cutting edge slightly. I'd be interested to talk to you about that, because it seems like in your own life you've hit that balance.
Yeah, I don't think we should confuse kind with allowing people to be too comfortable. Like kind, showing people respect, giving them the time, giving them the focus, giving them the support to do a great job. Kind doesn't mean that's okay, crack on, just deliver at half speed.
Okay, so the cruel to be kind thing.
Yeah.
You need to challenge them.
You definitely need to challenge people. And I think, I'm sure some of the people that have worked with or for me in the past would say really kind, super challenging. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I want us to do really, really well and achieve the goals that we set out. And that's relentless. But you don't have to get there by being a dick. But I think you're right. You do see, like, even a conversation yesterday with some neighbours that came over. Like, sometimes it's the really horrible people that seem to do really well in business.
Which is highly annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't think I could ever allow myself to be horrible to get there. I'd probably just fall over and it wouldn't work. But I just wonder what that is, that ruthless edge that they've got, something more that I need to push on or not. I don't know. And that would be a decision rather than, what do you think?
Well, I'm just thinking of, and I can't pronounce his name, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi or something. The guy wrote a lot about flow.
Right.
And there's an optimum place that people need to be in. If they're not challenged enough, they're not happy.
Yeah.
If they're challenged too much, it's too stressful, and they also don't perform well enough. So it's getting that balance between challenging them enough that they're they're moving forward, but not over challenging them so they get too stressed by it all. I think organisations that pitch that right are probably the ones that people really should go and work for.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But perhaps within a leadership team, you might have people on who challenge less and people who challenge more. I don't know. How does it work with your team?
I think it depends where the challenge comes. Is it because what we're asking the team to do is too tricky? Or is it that we're asking them to do something quite tricky in too short a time? The most challenged and the most frustrated I feel, and I'm sure you do or everyone does, is, right, we need to do this and I need you to do it by tomorrow afternoon. And you're like, well, I can do it by then. But it's going to be really hard because I'm going to have to work all of the hours to get there, and I won't be my best self and I'm going to be annoyed doing it. But if you would say in 7 days' time, we're going to need this and it's going to be harsh, we're going to have to work really hard, we're going to have to prioritise our workload, but this is the deadline for doing it. That sort of communication and the space to allow people to then bring their best self to that really challenging task. It's the way to do it. You can't always have that because sometimes you need to do things yesterday.
And do you think as a leader that you need to be seen to be working harder than the people that work for you?
What a question. I don't think you need to be seen to be doing anything. I think you need to be, I mean it in that sense, but it's, I don't really value a leader that's so busy that they don't have the space to think. And, there's been times in the past where, you've worked for a leader and they're the ones doing everything themselves and they're sort of dragging you along with them. I don't think that's great leadership. I think there's something about that in one of the 50 behaviours in the book. There's something wrong about that one behaviour. I think you need to create the space for everyone to do it, and I'd like to see leaders with space and time to think, to communicate, to engage with me.
Yes.
And of course you can be busy. You don't have to be visible all of the time, but I think there's a real art to being, you're not the one doing everything.
Yeah.
Or even though you feel like sometimes you probably could. And I think I know that when I'm the one, and I'm in that mindset where I'm just going to get it done, I know it'll be worse than if I asked the team to come along and help me with it. For sure. Always is.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think that's something quite wise you said about creating space, because I think a lot of my life probably, apart from the last few years, has been very much task orientated, and I haven't created that space. And I don't know. I think, well, for me, it involved a crisis to put in that change into my life. So I'd be interested to know that. I'm not sure you probably weren't like that when you were younger. How did that evolve? The becoming a human being rather than a human doing.
I don't know how far back we go or how deep you go here, but I think probably, over time and gradually would be the safest answer. To buy me a little bit of time to answer that question well. I don't know. I had a mental health episode when I was sort of 20-ish, early 20s. I think quite common with men, quite common with adolescents. That was around the time I was working alone a lot, like out and about as a salesperson. Made me think a hell of a lot.
Okay. Well, if you're comfortable to talk about that, it would be good to hear a bit more, because obviously it's a common issue. So, what happened?
I think I was just coming out of being a reprobate, let's call it. Mum's words, not mine.
I need to Google that later. I'm not sure what it is.
And I just was really lost with life, and I think I just started to go into my own head a lot more. And over the next year or two, started to get incredible anxiety, which starts to challenge how you think about things, irrational thoughts, just you can't see straight. I went and saw a doctor at the time, and he said the unkindest thing, and it was the worst thing. He said, maybe you've got something like schizophrenia. And I was like, and he said, no, I don't mean it like that. I don't think you have. And you're like, he's like, go and read the definition of it in the book. And I was like, shit.
I thought he was meant to be the doctor.
I think he was. And I went and read it, and I basically spiraled into this world of like, I'm not well. And then I went back and saw him about 10 times, and he was like, I think I've said the wrong thing. And I'm like, yeah, you have. And he sent me to see a psychiatrist, which was the scariest day of my life, walking into Barnet General, through the psychiatric ward, going up to see the psychiatrist. And he was like, there's nothing wrong with you at all. We spent 4 hours talking, and it's like, there's really nothing wrong, but you've got underlying anxiety, and that might be coming. And we unpacked it all, and it was about how I was growing and my environment, and things were changing for me.
And how old were you at this point?
I think I was like 21, 22. Okay. I was probably on antidepressants for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And you go through counselling, and that made it worse because you did it at the wrong time. And I think counselling is a really useful tool, but it needs to be when you're ready rather than when you're told you must go and get some counselling. So that just exploded things in an even worse direction for me. And gradually over time, things got better, started to get the right level of support. I brought fitness into my life and just made some changes around my environment that sort of allowed me to become better. And I think I say better in my health, better physically, better mentally. I sort of looked after myself rather than was always doing all the wrong things. And I think that's when the first big change happened for me. And then one of the greatest days ever of like taking the last tablet too. That was very cool.
How did that happen then? So who said stop taking the tablets?
I did.
Right. Okay.
I did. I was like, holy shit, I'm ready.
Okay.
And like whether you go through a journey, and it's a really useful part of treatment. Like when you finally say, I think I'm okay, usually with doctor's advice. But I went back to the psychiatrist as I'm like, I feel okay. And he's like, sure. He was like, we'll gradually taper you down. And then I was like, bang, we stopped it. And I was like, that was it. And it's not like everything's perfect from that moment on. You still have to work on your mental health as you do physical health. But that was a really big change in who I was as a person.
Yeah.
So that goes back to your question, like, when did I notice that something about me? That was one of the first times.
And presumably that's why you're obviously very passionate about mental health in the workplace and,
yes,
creating a environment where people presumably are happy to talk about that kind of thing at work. Is that the case?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really proud at Ella's Kitchen. So you did your sort of your annual, employee engagement survey. And one of the questions was, do you feel that there's a stigma around mental health in the workplace at Ella's? And I can't remember, I think it's like 85 or 86% of the team said no. Imagine that 86% is basically 86 people, because our team of 100 were okay talking about their mental health. Isn't that like the most desirable place to be? That just like you've hurt your wrist or your foot, you talk about that, and actually you felt just as comfortable in the right way, not just blurting it out, but in the right way you felt that you could have that conversation with somebody at work.
And if there is someone listening to this who's struggling with anxiety, what advice would you give them?
Talk about it to somebody, whoever that somebody is. It could be, online, because there's many resources online to go and start the journey. But I think the hardest thing is to actually talk about it and not feel weak or afraid. And actually that's a very powerful thing to do. And just, I was looking last week at loads of different feeds across. I'm not on any social media apart from LinkedIn. Part of that was one of the changes I made in my life. I got absolutely nothing back from social media apart from generally feeling less good about myself. So I haven't been on social media apart from LinkedIn, which I sort of saw as a tool for just being around the corporate world still. But last week I looked on LinkedIn and there's so many businesses like Arsenal Football Club just saying, just say one thing, just start the conversation. And whether that's your parents, your partner, your friend, or you don't want to talk to, there's lots of services you can go to.
So I think at Ella's you had a day, people would take a day off, an extra day off a month if they weren't feeling too good. Is that right? And how did it work, and how did it not get taken advantage of?
I think what we really wanted was to go down to a 4-day working week.
Right. So that was like a 4.25.
It was a very creative halfway house.
4.75, yeah. Okay.
It was. Catherine and Mark at the time were really creative about how do we find a way, because we all believed that it would be better for everybody. So I believe the parent company said no to 4 days a week, but be creative. And I think that was creative.
Okay.
So the Wellbeing Day was everybody can take 1 day a month to do what they want with, but it doesn't roll over.
And it's not a holiday?
Nope.
Right.
And the nicest thing to hear off the back of it, a lot of parents were like, every time I take a holiday to be with my children or to cover an inset day or to do this, and it's actually really quite nice to be able to go and do something for me. And it was really beneficial. I remember loving a Wellbeing Day, just having the permission to go and do what I wanted to do. And you don't need to define what well-being is, but having permission to do what you want to do is almost the definition of it. So I know that I think everybody really liked it. And I don't know whether or not they're still able to have wellbeing days at Ella's, but I know that when we had it, the time that it was there, everyone really cherished that moment. And I think they were grateful. And did we see any impact on workload? Of course not. Did we see people perform better? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I've seen there's been quite a lot of work done on companies that have gone down to 4-day weeks, and actually the productivity doesn't change at all.
Yeah.
So why do you think more companies don't do this? I mean, do you do it where you are now?
No, we don't. And I think it's a really good question. I can't imagine going to our investors in a scale-up business and saying, we're going to give the whole team 20% of their working week off.
No, but there is no evidence you could go with them you take with you and say, well, but here's the proof. It doesn't affect productivity. I mean, we haven't done it either, by the way.
We both know that there is a meaningful difference by giving it to the team, allowing the team to have it, but neither of us have been able to achieve it. So why are we scared from doing it? Is it scared the wrong reason? But why haven't we done it? And that's the tricky bit.
I mean, for us, we like to be in the wholesale business. I can see that being a direction of travel. I find it a bit more difficult in the hospitality and retail, which is 7 days a week. 12 hours a day operation. Which is, any business in that sector is struggling at the moment to pay. We pay living wage, foundation wages, etc. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough. So it's more difficult to see it in that.
Yeah.
Because we all know that the companies where people have done 4-day weeks, people are probably working a bit harder on the other days because they know they've got the incentive of the day off on Friday, if it's Friday or any other day. So yes, get that, and less time-sensitive businesses. But, you need as many staff there on a Sunday morning as you do on a Monday afternoon to serve the customers. So
we did discuss it. It might have been over a beer rather than in a meeting room. And
the best discussions are always over beer, I think.
Yeah, I think sometimes they are. And they, our team at the farm work 4-day shift patterns. So we're like, because if you do it for everybody.
Yeah.
And we were like, the team are already doing it at the farm. Invariably, their shifts are far longer.
Yes, so they're doing the same number of hours per week. Yeah.
So it felt like a conversation I think we'd all like to have, but we haven't had it in the way that we should.
Okay, probably not going to solve this one today, but let's keep thinking about that. Talk to you about failure, which I quite often talk about this. Have you had any times in your life when you've had a big fail? And if so, what was it and how did it change you? Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall having a big failure, and that doesn't mean, oh, look at me, I'm so successful. It more means I think my failures have been like lower level but more frequent as I've not looked after myself. Building fitness into my life was really important, but when it wasn't there, not looking after yourself, and you go out for beers with your friends, and actually I think my failures came when I wasn't looking after myself and I wasn't able to be the best, or I wasn't able to be good enough for me. And then I'd start to self-sabotage, and then I'd start to question, and then I'd overthink. And I think those failures have come from not planning correctly for certain things, or just letting myself down. But hopefully they've got less and less as I've grown wiser and older in my life. But I'm sure I effed things up a lot in my 20s. What about when other people fail or let you down? I was told, actually, by both people I talked to, that you sometimes would get disappointed if people don't do what they say they're going to do, or how do you deal with that?
I think that that is true. When people say they're going to do something and they don't, that's definitely an area of concern for me, to put it correctly. Failure is less so of a problem, because failure is because you've tried something. I think the not doing it is because you haven't started it is the bigger problem. If we fail, I think that's fine. I mean, obviously there's scales of failure, but in most parts or most working weeks, the failures are relatively small and can be picked up on, learnt from, and moved on really quickly. But the bit that I find quite hard is when you say, right, I'm going to do that by Thursday next week. You're like, great, is there anything that we can do to help you to get to that point? And then you get to sort of Wednesday and you're like, everything's a bit quiet. And then you get to Thursday and you're like, how are we doing? Oh, what? Oh, sorry, yeah, no, haven't done it. And you're like, oh, but I've sort of said I'm going to be sharing part of that information to somebody else tomorrow. So now we've both not delivered what we've said. I find that bit, I think it's one of Huel's values. And I remember talking to James McMaster, who is now the CEO at Huel.
Okay.
He was saying, what's the one thing that annoys you the most, or one thing you try and guide you with? And I was like, don't be shit. And I mean that like in a better sense of the word, but like don't actually put the effort in to do it. Don't say you'll do something and then don't just say I can't do it and talk about the beginning part, saying why I can't do it. So don't be shit with something. I don't use it as a phrase, but it was at the time when I met James McMaster, we talked about it. And that, yeah.
Again, it's the balance there, isn't there, between being compassionate and also having standards.
Yes.
And again, it's a tightrope, I guess, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, the tightrope, and you can't get it right all the time. And I think that's where humility, compassion, and all of those things have to come into it at some point. It's okay, we don't always all deliver everything we say we're going to. It doesn't always happen in the way that we intended. I think that's where communication comes in. So it's not arriving at the end and going, bugger. Let's
talk about change, because this is a subject area I like to talk about. Because I think, the best people are always changing for the positive. How would you say you've changed in the last, say, 5 years or so?
Quite a lot. I've worked really hard on it. I've been lucky enough to have 2 coaches.
Why do you think it's important? Because I've talked about this before, but the people I most click with are people who want to change. I have a problem with people who don't want to change, actually. But why is it important people want to change, for a start?
If you change the word change to grow...
That's a better word.
I'd love it if everyone wanted to grow. And I find it hard when somebody doesn't want to grow. And I want to grow. Part of my purpose is I want to leave everything a little bit better than I found it, including me. So why is it not everyone wants to? Some people just don't need to. That's them.
Don't need to, or
well, they personally don't feel the need.
No.
They need to change, whether they do or not.
Yeah,
it's opinion.
But I think you're right. I think grow is a better word.
I want to grow, and I went on a path. I was lucky to work with a brilliant coach. One of them who's actually been on your podcast as well. But I've had some very big moments about why I internalise things in the wrong way, and it really used to get me down. And brilliant coach called Susie, we worked out that because I'm such a big introvert and a reflector, what I'm actually doing, she said, we need to reframe this. It's actually you're getting ready for certain things, so you're getting ready for change, understanding that all of that energy that's happening before a moment is actually me getting ready. That's been that was the first thing that happened. That was during COVID.
Yeah. And how do you, if someone was listening to this thing, actually I could do with a bit of help growing. How do you find the right person? Because it's a very personal relationship, isn't it? How do you find the right person to help you grow?
Trial and error. I think it's the conversation. It's the rapport. It's the first interaction, the second, the third. It's not easy because you often hear people go, I had a coach, and they weren't actually that helpful.
I've heard a few. That's why I asked the question. Yeah, I've had a lot of people say that it didn't work for me.
Yeah,
and they are people who want to grow and change.
I think it must be tricky as the coach, and I've been interested in coaching, but I've not done a professional qualification in it. But yeah, I think it's all about rapport, because you need to feel safe, comfortable, and with talking to that person. Otherwise, you're probably not going to share everything that you need to, or be prepared to go deep enough in the areas that are going to unlock the change. But I was very lucky with Susie. We had the first call, and I was like, actually, you made me think a lot. I felt comfortable. So we continued on that journey. I can't remember who does the coaching. Is it Animas who do coaching? And I think you can sign on to their course, and actually you get like a 10 or 20 minute coaching session with somebody. And you can quite quickly establish if somebody's, it's like going out, meeting new friends. Like they're only your friends because you really like them and you get on with them. And you're not friends with everyone. So it's sometimes they're just not the right people.
And emotions, interesting. You talked about being an introvert, because I think a lot of people wrongly, when they think of the word leader, they're thinking this very, or probably overt, masculine, extrovert, brash, actually slightly annoying person that comes to mind. And we can all think of people. How easy has it been for you to be a leader and be an introvert? And would you say you're in a minority, or do you think there are as many introverts that are leaders as extroverts?
I think there are probably some brilliant introverted leaders. I think it's how you learn how to lead in that way. So I know I get my energy from... Sorry, let me reframe that. I know that before something where a lot is going to be asked of me, I need to prepare ahead of that. Sometimes I won't get the best version of me in that moment. It comes the next day, which is annoying until you work out how to do the work beforehand. But I have to work hard on all of my energy. Okay. And so I go to the gym every day. That's me. That's because that's where I sort of prepare for what's ahead for my day. Yeah. So I think there can be some brilliant introverted leaders, some really deep thinkers. But I couldn't say if it was the norm or not. But I wouldn't want to work with too many extroverted leaders either.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good balance. I mean, we both believe in team leadership anyway. So with any good team, you're always going to have both, aren't you?
Yes.
In the team. Yeah. Does that make it more difficult for you to express your emotions in the workplace?
Yes, definitely.
Do you, or do you feel like you know? Because I think it's healthy for people to express their emotions in the workplace, and because people need to see that we're human. So how do you do that?
So quite a few of my team, especially at Ella's and at Grow Up, have said that I have a leaky face.
What?
A leaky face means I show how I'm thinking on my face.
Okay.
And I don't always know it.
Right.
So it can be... I think I even did it we were going through some due diligence with a brilliant company, and they really annoyed me. And the whole team on the call looked and were like, "We're so sorry, we've really annoyed you." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, you did." But they could see it in my face. Okay. How do I manage emotions? I think it's quite tricky. Like, you can go a bit further back into like vulnerabilities and things, but I sometimes struggle to work out what the right balance is of being overly excited or overly underwhelmed or really cross. And I try and be centered, and maybe I'm sometimes too centered and actually don't show emotion enough. I think I'm mostly good at it now, but I'm sure there are times already today where I've probably not shown the right emotion to the team because of something that we needed to do. But everyone always says to me, and it's not true, in my opinion, "You're very calm, you're very relaxed. Nothing seems to fluster you." And you're like, God, if only you knew what's happening inside. So maybe I'm not showing my emotions well enough, because I think a huge amount of energy maybe isn't coming out in the way that it could.
I mean, you know, as a leader, you don't want to burst into tears in every day, do you?
No.
Maybe just once a week's enough.
but yeah, I was thinking about that. I can't even remember the last time I did burst into tears, so that's a whole different podcast. But no, you don't. But I think it's really important to be centered, and it's okay to be frustrated or or excited about things, because that energy transfer is really important when you're trying to lead a business.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. Yeah.
But also, don't be a dick. And sometimes you get this incredible amount of energy that comes at the wrong time, and we've all been in that moment where it's either been you or you're the recipient of it, and you're like, really?
Let's running towards the end, but I did want to talk about any spirituality. So, I mean, that's sometimes it's a word that people think of different things by. For me, it just means connecting with yourself, connecting with nature, connecting with others. And you already mentioned energy transfer, which I think is a form of spirituality. You've mentioned going to the gym, which I think for me is also a spiritual practice, because it's a place I go, I leave my phone in the locker, and I just connect actually with myself, despite being out of breath most of the time. But what do you have any kind of spiritual practices, and what is it that keeps you connected?
I'm not sure if I have any spiritual practices, But I work hard on mindfulness and being present. And I try and walk the dog most days, apart from when you're in the office, and try and look up rather than down. And that's just to allow me to think rather than be on the same beaten path and just walking along and getting it done and looking up and wondering what could be. And that when I remember to do that, and you look at the colour of the leaves or you look at the colour of the sky or the sun, something very different happens inside.
Yeah.
You know, that dog walk on the same loop becomes way more interesting.
I like that. Look up.
But I'd often try and look up and just be observant. And it took ages to work out that was something that's really simple to do. Whether that's with a podcast, with music, with not on my own, just in my own thoughts sometimes. But we've all been there, you know, when you've gone through that walk and you're just furious about something.
Yeah.
And sometimes you come back more furious because all you've done is fuel this negativity. Yes. And other times you come back and go, no, actually, I think I was at fault on that. And actually, I can do something better with it now.
I think I like the looking up. Maybe I need to do more of that. But it's about getting things in perspective, isn't it? I talked about this somewhere the other day, that one of the important parts of mindfulness is actually knowing our smallness. I think when we get into nature, we said, well, actually, we are incredibly small, aren't we? Or also that problem that we're getting really annoyed about actually isn't that important.
Yeah.
And it probably won't, no one will remember it in 3 months' time.
It's hard, isn't it? When that problem right then is manifesting itself in all the wrong ways and you're like, be all right next day.
Yeah. I thought that's a friend of mine who is a speaker. He encourages people to ask the question, how important will this be? I think he says 6 months' time. And very, very few things will actually, I mean, some, you know, a cyber attack might still be, but most things won't even be remembered in 6 months' time.
Too true. Or even a week.
Yeah, probably, yes. Yeah.
Rare. Oh, that's quite
How
thought-provoking.
important is nature to you then? Because I think you, when you were at Ella's, you used to get out into nature as a leadership team, didn't you?
We did, and I'd have all of my one-to-ones walking in the woods.
Yeah.
Except when it was hammering it down with rain, but I think the team all loved the fact we just used to go for a walk. They're really important to just be at one with. You know, been out for a walk this morning. We live in the countryside. I'm really lucky. But it's important to just recognise it and to enjoy it, whether it's sunny or raining, whatever.
And you take your new team out, do you, at Grow Up?
And we'll always go for a walk where we can. Unfortunately, where the farm is in Sandwich in Kent is on an enterprise park. But we'll still walk up and down the road. And
that's the problem with the vertical farm. They're not actually in the countryside, are they?
No, they're definitely not. It's on a brownfield site originally. So, yes, but I think it's important to be with nature. Just take the time. And again, that look up and just take notice. And it might help you with realising how small we all are.
So we're getting towards the end of the time we've got together. I sent you a couple of questions. I told you I was going to ask you, the rest I hadn't. But one piece of advice that you wish you had when you started out.
I think it was what
you've touched on that, haven't you already?
Was,
actually,
You can 100% do it, and you will. You know, don't self-sabotage. Believe in it, and it might not happen in the way that you intend, but if you believe in it, it can happen.
And a piece of advice that you did have, but actually you've chosen to ignore it because it wasn't any good.
This was that really made me laugh, this question, because the person who gave me this feedback can remain nameless. But they said when aeroplanes were first invented, they used to have square windows. And I was like, right, okay. And they said, but what they used to do is the fuselage used to crack because of the corners on the square windows, and the planes would drop out of the sky. And it was only then that they designed planes to have corners on windows, like the rounded corners. Right. And he said, and I think you've got square windows, Will. And I was like, what? I think what you're trying to tell me is that I might need to change and evolve as a person. But I'm not sure I'm going to take that advice or that feedback from you. And even to this day, I still remember that meeting room, what we were looking out at. And just, I was unsure if I was furious or about to burst out laughing. But I think it was a subtle hint that maybe I needed to do something different about my approach to certain situations.
Okay.
But I just disregarded it. I was like, rubbish.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, yeah. And I asked you to look through the chapters of Fourth Bottom Line and choose one leadership characteristic that most resonates with you at the moment. What would it be?
Yeah, there were 5 that stood out, and I haven't answered your question well enough. Is it interdependent, or I can't remember, it was the connectedness, but I
think there's a chapter on each, so yeah, there is connectedness.
Connectedness is really important to me right now. As we're in a business that's going through phenomenal change and scaling so fast, the connectivity, or that being connected with my team, is really important to me. And it's really easy to not be connected, and I can feel quite disconnected quite quickly. So I put a lot of effort into being connected with the team, to make sure I understand where they are, where we are, and how we're working together, because that relationship and the fluidity, if that's the right way of saying it, of just the information flow is so much better when you're connected than when you're disconnected. And
practically how you do it, because I think you're spread over different geographies, aren't you? So how do you do that connectedness?
A lot of planning to make sure that when you've got time, it's time together, rather than, right, we've got a one-to-one, there's 17 things we need to get, like, rubbish, I'll try and get that out. And almost that's already happened in a different way. And actually the first question is normally like, how are you?
Fine.
Yeah, okay. So what else is going on?
That's the trouble with that question.
Yeah, it's, and then you have to work harder, and over time, it's like asking your kids how it was at school. What's the answer you get back? Good. And you're like, brilliant. So, okay, let's think about what good is. But it's making sure we have the time to actually just talk and connect together. And half the time, we won't talk about work because we know where we're at.
Yes.
Because you're connected. You see each other, the communication's happening. But when you're not connected, suddenly you're like, tell me about what we're doing over here. And also, I've got another question about this. So it is, for me, it's about being connected.
Okay, good. Well, that's a good place to end. I love connectivity. Thanks for your honesty and openness and authenticity, and coming on the Fourth Bottom Line.
Thanks very much.
Look forward to seeing what you get up to in the next 5 years.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for having me on, Paul.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fourth Bottom Line. Please hit subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode, and do leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to learn more about my work, follow me on LinkedIn, visit my website paulhargreaves.co.uk, or look out for my 2 books, Forces for Good and The Fourth Bottom Line. Thank you so much for listening.